Europe's top human rights court has ruled that the failure of the Swiss government to adequately tackle climate change is a violation of human rights. The case was brought by more than 2,000 women. The landmark ruling could have far-reaching implications for other European countries, as Charlie Angela reports.
A win for climate activists and a warning to the Swiss government to cut emissions faster than planned. Jubilation in Strasbourg after a group of elderly Swiss women successfully argued their government is putting them at risk of dying during heat waves by not doing enough to combat climate change. They said as older women, they were more at risk than other groups. The European Court ruled that Switzerland's failure to meet past greenhouse gas reduction targets had violated their human rights.
The Court holds that under Article 8, states have a duty to adopt and to effectively apply in practice regulations and measures capable of mitigating the existing and potentially irreversible future effects of climate change.
The court threw out two similar cases, but only on geographical technicalities. A case brought by Portuguese young people was rejected for pursuing governments other than their own, and a former French mayor claiming victim status due to flooding was also rejected because he is no longer a resident in France. But the win for the Swiss women is a win for all, they say, and not about protecting their generation, but the next.
La Cour nous a reconnus.
The court has recognised us as our fundamental right to a healthy climate, and that our country should do what it has not done until now, meaning to take ambitious measures to protect our health and protect the future for us all.
These landmark cases have played out against the backdrop of wildfires, now a regular threat during Europe's summer season. Melting glaciers and rising sea levels, which have seen devastating floods across Europe. The ruling on the Swiss government is legally binding and cannot be appealed. It says it now needs time to work out what reduction measures it can propose.
It is an important judgment, perhaps a historic judgment, that will probably attract the attention of many countries outside Switzerland. So I guess the message that has been sent by the court is also of relevance to all these countries.
There are 40 similar cases already underway globally that challenge government's weak action on climate change. This verdict will have significance for many of them. Charlie Angela, Al Jazeera.
Let's bring in Kustrim Istrefi. He's a professor of human rights law at Utrecht University, and he joins us now from the Netherlands. Great to have you with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about these three cases and why the Swiss one won?
Thank you. This is indeed a landmark judgment, the Swiss case, as it is the one of the three important cases that resulted with a violation of human rights. The difference between this and the two other cases is mostly related to procedural issues on how can you file a successful complaint before the European Court of Human Rights. This, in legal terminology, is related to the notion of admissibility. So the Portuguese case, for example, though it had a very valid claim on substance, the individuals in those cases had not brought the cases before national courts first, which is something that the Swiss case did. So they first exhausted local remedies, which is a requirement for the Strasbourg court to hear a case on the merits. The French case was also declared inadmissible on the grounds that the individual who brought the case had no standing before the court as it did not have a victim status. So while all three of them on merits raised the same issue, namely the state's obligations to combat climate change, the reason why one succeeded and the other two did not concern these procedural hurdles on how to successfully bring a complaint.
Sure. So future potential litigants in similar cases will have been watching this closely to see what worked and what didn't. Do you expect now kind of a rush of these similar sorts of cases being taken to hold governments to account?
Yes, indeed. The Swiss case has set a clear precedent on states' positive obligations to take specific measures, adopt specific regulations to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So the obligations that were set in this case are not something specific only to Switzerland, but in this case has set clear standards on what is expected from each and every member of the Council of Europe. So I do expect a large number of cases to arrive. At the same time, the court has made clear that while these cases are important in substance, they still need to undergo national courts and exhaust other remedies in order to be successful before the court.
Okay.
So I think it's important to celebrate the part of the standard that the court has set, as this is the main issue that I think any strategic litigant in this case has aimed at.
Now, the Swiss Justice Ministry particularly, it says that it's analysing the judgment and what measures it must take in the future to address the ruling. But it's not been forced to do anything as a result of this case, is it?
Could you please repeat the last part?
Does this ruling force the Swiss government to do anything, or is it more of an advisory role?
It is a binding judgment, so Switzerland is obliged to implement the judgment. There are two aspects that are important that Swiss authorities must do immediately. First, the court has clarified, meaning the Strasbourg court, that every national court in Switzerland, but also in other states, have an obligation to connect climate change with human rights. So they cannot refuse or fail to examine in detail the connection between the two. And the second aspect concerns the specific obligations the states will undertake to combat climate change. Certainly, the issue of human rights obligations in these types of cases is usually a matter of means and not of result. So what the court will look at is whether the states have done everything they could in terms of their resources and efforts, have adopted specific regulations and taken measures to show that they have taken important measures to meet the standards set already through the Paris Agreement on what needs to be with regards to the greenhouse gas emissions.
OK, Christian Mistrafi, we'll leave it there. But many thanks for taking the time to join us here on Al Jazeera.
A pleasure.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.